Please take your seats and silence your phones. The session will begin shortly.
In recent years, we've seen a growing commitment to climate and nature positivity by global business leaders, investors, and governments. A quarter of Fortune Global 500 companies have made public pledges to carbon neutrality, 100% renewable power, and or meeting science-based emission reduction targets by 2030. This is extremely positive. But change will not happen without empowering the small-scale farmers and business owners, also crucial to economies in developing countries. Smallholder farms, typically smaller than 5 acres and supporting a single family, support almost 2 billion people in developing countries. Because they require less industrial input, they are critical to improving food security and sustainability where they operate. These small farms can have a major impact on global food supplies, but they need access to land and water, financial services to pay for seed, tools, and fertilizer, roads and means of transportation to market their products, technology to access and share market information, and stronger organizations to grow their influence. I'm proud to announce TechnoServe's commitment, Regenerate 30, which will support and strengthen farmers and small businesses in the development of a people, nature, and climate-positive world. TechnoServe will train farmers on regenerative techniques for climate change adaptation and resilience, protect, manage, and restore marine environments through sustainability practices, offer business accelerator programs to increase economic opportunity and scale impact, and help food processors and other agribusinesses transition to renewable energy in their operations. The impact of this program will be dramatic. By 2030, this work will result in 30% increased income for farmers and businesses in sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and India, a 30 million ton reduction in carbon emissions, a sustainable management, protection, or restoration of 30 million acres of land, $300 million in private sector investments in small farms and businesses, and meaningful benefits to 30 million people. I thank TechnoServe for this exciting new commitment to empower farmers and entrepreneurs to build better futures for themselves, their communities, and our shared planet.
Please welcome to the stage Kathy Higgins.
Thank you, and hello, everyone. I'm Kathy Higgins, the CEO of the Alliance for a Healthier Generation, and before our distinguished panel gets started today, we have 3 commitment announcements to make, for which Healthier Generation is one. But first, to get started, let me welcome Jahil Oliver to the stage from Hello Tractor. Jahil, welcome. While agriculture is the backbone of the economy in many countries in Africa, much farmland remains underutilized. Structural barriers, growing populations, climate change impacts, and poor access to capital and equipment have caused productivity to stagnate. Farmers are struggling to both grow their businesses and improve the quality of agricultural products. One major factor is keeping productivity low is a lack of access to equipment. Tractors are expensive to own, and many smallholder farms, typically run by rural women, are unable to access financing. Hello Tractor works in 14 African countries, selling fleet management software and an equipment booking app that allows farm equipment owners and farmers to connect directly. Today, Hello Tractor, partnering with John Deere, Heifer International, and others, is committing to scale its pay-as-you-go program to finance tractors to 250,000 small farms across Kenya, Nigeria, and Uganda. The program will prioritize farmers who are unbanked, women in rural areas, and young people. In addition to enhancing access to financing, Hello Tractor will work with local partners to provide access to climate smart practices and conservation services, as well as insurance, fertilizer, seeds, and irrigation to boost productivity. Strengthening the agricultural sector in many of the poorest and most climate vulnerable locations is critical to achieving economic growth and sustainability. Thank you and congratulations. Okay, next I'd like to invite Amy Samples of App Harvest to the stage. Welcome, Amy. Climate instability, natural disaster, water scarcity, economic turmoil, and COVID-19 pandemic have all contributed to a seismic growth in the number of people facing acute food insecurity around the world. And the United States is not immune, with the distance to ship imported produce presenting an additional complication here. At the same time, steep declines in coal power generation and employment in Kentucky have decimated many rural, underserved communities that relied upon the food industry for livelihood. The two challenges together are calling to action to improve lives, communities, and local economies. App Harvest and team of regional partners are committing to establish an AppTech hub in Central Appalachian that will provide agricultural education and workforce development programs. App Harvest will prepare workers displaced from coal and other declining local industries to access living wages through agricultural jobs. The programs will emphasize high-tech agriculture and STEM education and target high schools with existing programs to scale its impact. App Harvest commitment will grow an early proven model of success by adding partners, curricula, and shared operating systems and student exchange programs. This commitment will expand both the reach and the impact of App Harvest's earlier work. Congratulations and thank you. Okay, I would like to welcome Bibby Wu of Del Monte to the stage, please. It's a pleasure to introduce my own commitment with you, Bibby. With 11 million children in America living in households without consistent access to adequate food, meals, and snacks provided in schools are a critical resource. On a typical day, almost 15 million students eat school breakfast and almost 30 million students eat school lunch. Most of these students are low income and qualify for free and reduced meals. The COVID-19 pandemic had a profound impact on communities that rely on schools to enhance not just learning, but whole child health. Studies show that students who eat a school breakfast have better attendance, better performance on standardized tests, and are much more likely to graduate high school. In short, school meals alleviate food insecurity and poverty and support good nutrition, improved health outcomes, and boost learning. Today, the Alliance for Healthier Generation is partnering with Del Monte Foods to reach 7.5 million students and their families through Nourishing Families by Nourishing Schools program. This is one part of Del Monte's $5 million commitment over the next 10 years to support organizations focused on health and wellness of youth and communities. The program will engage with 10,000 schools K through 12 throughout nationwide to enhance food access and nutrition, develop social and emotional learning skills, and encourage whole health at home. Viewing schools as a critical place to access food and develop healthy habits, the commitment will target improved physical, mental, and social well-being. Resources will be distributed to families and community partners largely in under-resourced communities to improve food access and security. And a digital campaign will help families make healthy choices and reduce obesity. This commitment is a meaningful step in advancing health equity nationwide by giving young people the resources they need to thrive, regardless of where they live. Thank you, Del Monte.
Please welcome to the stage Chu Dongju.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. First of all, sincerely thanks the opportunity given me to address today to you by the Bill Clinton Foundation. And also, I started congratulate three received awards which you made outstanding, marvelous contribution to the society and to the vulnerable need most. I thank you and I congratulate you. President Clinton continued to be the visionary leader who has designed and implemented significant policy reforms. Today, he has gathered us here to rethink, revision the future of our world. Conflict and destabilization, global and national economic shocks, and weather extremes are affecting the way we produce, supply, consume our goods. Our agri-food systems are fragile, and our supply chains are under pressure. The war in Ukraine and other ongoing conflicts added further unpredictable challenges. Biofuel and energy, fertilizer, food, and feed prices has rising. And the hunger levels are unacceptably high and have increased to 150 million more chronically undernourished people in the last 2 years. And the climate crisis affecting every corner of this small planet. The magnitude, the severity to acute food insecurity is daunting. We are at the risk of facing a food access crisis now and a food availability and affordability crisis in the coming months. Hopefully, but maybe years to come. We have to prepare ourselves as a small planet doulas. We need to act together as right correctly, take action together to tackle these global challenges. As a scientist, as a son of a smallholding farmers, I have witnessed how agriculture can be a vehicle of transformation and a fundamental part of the solution. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations must do more and better with your support. Leading international efforts to assist members for world free from hunger. Our focus is on transforming agri-food systems to be more efficient, more inclusive, more resilient, and more sustainable for better production, better nutrition, better environment, and better life for all, leaving no one behind. The FAO Strategy Framework 2022-31 prioritizes this transformation across all our work in support of members on the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to touch on the commitments of action that we brought us here today. First, the climate crisis knows no boundaries. The agricultural sector has been impacted the most by climate-related disasters. FAO is focused on investing data-based solutions in resilience by helping farmers to anticipate, be prepared and equipped before disaster strikes, and be resilient when they have to face it. We know that investing in agriculture and rural livelihood is 7 to 10 times more cost-effective and sustainable than direct food assistance. Yet, only 8% of all global food security funding in emergencies goes to the assisted agricultural production. Displacement due to the natural disasters and the climate crisis is not a choice. People are forced to migrate to try to escape the poverty, threats to their livelihood, and the disasters. This global crisis is pushing over 100 million people who are displaced to the brink. We need to invest in long-term solutions that provide the most vulnerable with hope, opportunities, tools, resources, and accessibility to feed themselves and their families. FAO does this through the people-centered approaches that build a resilient livelihood and enable their self-sufficiency. The second is health equity from a food perspective. Food is a basic human right. We should accessible, affordable, and with nutrition, health guaranteed. There is a critical link between the quality of our diets and the food security. Currently, more than 3 billion people in the world cannot afford a healthy diet, both in developing and developed countries. Before pandemic, when you talk about food insecurity and food malnutritious, all far away from developed nations. But now, through the Baby Boost program, you realize all the food insufficient people are around the corner, even in the prosperity developed nations. So that is a real global challenge we have to tackle together. There are many actions we can address this as an integral part of our work on agro-food systems. We need to make nutritious, safe food affordable and accessible to all. Governments need to allocate and reallocate public budget in a cost-effective and efficient way. Yesterday, I had a long discussion with the Honorable President of Malawi. Today, fortunately, he is here. So you can listen directly from him what are his vision and action. Our global trade system should be kept open and effective. International market of agro-food products should not be interrupted or distorted. We need to expand the supply of nutritious food and then shift the consumption ways towards them. The third commitment to action is inclusive economic recovery and growth. The COVID-19 pandemic and the conflict have increased global income inequality, and we have affected the economic growth, food security and nutrition, gender inequality, decent employment, and environment ambitions. To ensure recovery from the crisis and to prevent more people from falling into the poverty, we need to be inclusive and stay committed to our collective pledge to leaving no one behind. We need to implement policies that address structural inequalities and that target rural poverty. The FAO Food Price Index this year reported the record high numbers. For every additional 1% increase in food prices, nearly 10 million more people could be living in extreme poverty. So when you read the news headlines, food price increase, what it means? 1%. It means another additional 10 million people suffering extreme poverty. Let's give you a real number. Not only 1%. 1%, oh, say 90% is good. No, not true. So we are scientists. We have to see the root cause and the real impact on the people of vulnerable people, especially in the vulnerable areas. I didn't say vulnerable country. Social protection is critical for poverty reduction, inclusive growth, and great resilience. And it must be a priority for national governments and key partners. FAO, together with the partners, continue to advocate for expansion of social protection programs to reach everyone, everywhere. Dear friends and colleagues, we are all here today because we need the solutions to address this global crisis. We must transform our agri-food systems, and we must work together, all the partners, from government, private, academia, civil society, you name it. It's a real matter of the human being. Make us, we are real intelligent mama animal, different from other animals. To accelerate this transformation, we need a proper policy. We need to increase the investment on agro-infrastructure to harness science, innovation, technology. Partnership with the private sector are fundamental as we can provide innovative solutions and tools, marketing channels, resources, and technology needed. Despite these challenges and the difficulties, I remain optimistic about the contributions that we can make to accelerate change. We need renewed emphasis and renewed investment in agri-food systems and farmers globally. We only have 7 agricultural seasons left to achieve the 2030 agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. Let's show the solidarity passion for humanity. I'm so delighted to see today also they have a Global Food Security Summit during this GA, UNGA meeting. I know a lot of colleagues and leaders put all their efforts to make this event happening. Yeah? And let us to be efficient, innovative, and effective, and let's stay committed to creating changes for a better world together. I thank you.
Please welcome moderator Cindy McCain. Joining her will be President Lazarus McCarthy Chakwera, Gabriella Boucher, Matthew Brooks Wilson, and Carrie Freeman.
Hi, I'm so grateful that all of you are here today, and I want to thank the Clinton Global Initiative particularly for inviting me to be here on behalf of not only this issue, but also on behalf of the people around the world that cannot feed themselves today. First of all, if I may just say just a couple things before we get to this very esteemed panel. We're in a crisis right now, and I'm not telling you anything that you don't know. But for the most part, what we're dealing with is a choice between emergency assistance and long-term resilience. So those are going to be the main topics today and what we talk about. And more importantly, I'm going to add another little one in there, and that's water. So I'm grateful that you're here, and we'll get started, if I may. If I first may, I'd like each of you to introduce yourselves just briefly, if you might, and so people know who you are and what you're doing, if you wouldn't mind. Mr. President?
My name is Lazarus Chakwera, President, Republic of Malawi. And I'm leading a nation that has a vision to become an inclusively wealthy, self-reliant, middle-income nation by 2063. Thank you.
Fabulous.
Good morning, everyone. Very pleased to be here. My name is Gabriela Boucher. I'm the Executive Director of Oxfam International.
Hamadakapi Matthew Wilson Machapilo. Chante Washana Pejuzapilo. Hi, everybody. My name is Matthew Wilson. I am the Food Sovereignty Initiative Director at Sichonguko. Thank you.
So fantastic. Hello, everyone. I'm Carrie Freeman, co-CEO of Second Muse, and we're an innovation agency that supports entrepreneurs in building a economy that works for everyone and the planet.
Great. Well, let's get started. The first question I'd like to pose to all of you is, of course, not only the topic of food security, but now the topic that food security is a national security issue. Finally, we have raised it to a hard security issue, and we're talking about it in terms of just that. Food security, as you know, is a hard security issue when we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of migrants that are either coming across our southern border or around the world, moving around the world. It affects all of us. So my first question that I would like to pose to the panelists is this. I'd like to hear from all of you your thoughts on how we generate middle and longer-term investments to protect against the inevitable next shock. We are sure there's going to be a next shock. And so that we don't wind up scrambling, and we can deal with this emergency in a much more organized fashion, if there is such a way. So I'd like to pose that. Mr. President, would you like to begin?
Well, probably shocks will be the new normal now. And so preparing for the same is critical, not just on a national level, but on a worldwide level. We need to be able to have food security on a household level for Malawi's, as well as on a national level. And we're wanting to do this so that even the most vulnerable can have something to eat. And affordable fertilizers, affordable seeds, making sure they get together in clubs and cooperatives so the smallholder farmers can mechanize and commercialize. That scales up production and the quantity as well as the quality. And if there's consistency, then there will be food availability, not just for the nation, but for others as well. The land is there, the water is there, and we just need to do what we need to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. So I would say my main message today is that the fight against hunger is very inextricably linked to the fight against inequality. And of course, we talk about the shocks that we are experiencing now, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, also the war in Ukraine. But in reality, there was already a long-term trend showing increase in hunger. So the food prices have been at the highest before the Ukraine war started for the last 10 years. So it was already a trend that was developing. And of course, the whole food system is shaped in such a way that is very fragile. And these shocks have much higher consequences as a result of the way in which the whole system is set up. And it's a very unequal system. So we have at the top, and in our research, Oxfam has shown how during the pandemic, there were 62 new food billionaires that were created during that time. So there's active concentration of wealth at the top of the food system globally. And then on the other hand, we see that smallholder farmers that have been mentioned already today are unfortunately themselves suffering from hunger and because of the levels of lack of fertilizers or the effects of climate change. severe droughts, for example, in Central America, have driven smallholder farmers to migrate and to leave. And you were talking about how they come to the US as a result. But this is because they don't have the basics, seeds or the fertilizers that would allow them to have a sustainable livelihood as they did before, which is in reality their vocation and their interest. So a key element for us to look for the longer term is to address the whole system, to understand that the whole system is rigged in a way that benefits the 1% and those very large food corporations. And we know some of them, 4 large corporations control 70% of the food market. So with that, it needs to be addressed in terms of breaking down monopolies and also introducing windfall taxes, especially in the food systems. Windfall taxes are being discussed in different places at the moment. The European Union is discussing windfall taxes, so understanding that these excessive profits that have been made during the pandemic time need to be addressed. If they are addressed also in the food systems and the extreme accumulation, there will be resources to invest in ensuring that smallholder farmers have the required resources to have sustainable livelihoods. And long term, so these windfall taxes are a short-term reaction to the crisis, but long-term wealth taxation is one of the ways in which resources can be mobilized so that the long-term solution is ensuring that smallholder farmers have regular resources.
I would say my message is what we did in Rosebud is really focusing on less on food security and more on food sovereignty. We know that it's important to have enough food to eat, but it's also important to know where your food is coming from, who's growing it, what methods go into producing your food, and also who it empowers, what communities it empowers. Our work also starts off with the simple idea of that we are Lakota, and with that, we believe that we have to create a better world for future generations. So having that notion or that concept of always thinking 7 generations into the future and how the decisions we do today affects those that are yet to come really puts a big responsibility on us in how we make our decisions and how it's going to affect the future. And I think we really did that with food sovereignty and really teaching people how to grow their own food. It isn't enough to be able to give someone a fish to eat, but it's important to teach them how to fish. But it's also important to being able to manage the pond as well, and making sure that we're doing right by our plant and animal relatives as well. We have a duty as Native people to protect our land and nurture it. And so we ask that same kind of question of our community. What do we need to be doing now for our future generations? And one of the top things that people would like to see is a better and revitalized relationship with buffalo. Buffalo is a keystone species for the prairie, and it's really a big part of our culture. As Lakota, we are Buffalo people. And so being able to have that connection with buffalo again, reintroducing them onto our homelands, was really important for us. And so with our Wolakota regenerative buffalo range, we were able to do that during the pandemic. A big feat for us. We were fortunate enough to have really great partners that were able to invest in us and work with us. But in it all, not only having buffalo on our land helped us culturally, but also economically and ecologically. The buffalo meat that we were harvest, we were able to do 50 harvests this year, and we were able to use that meat to go into our schools as part of the school lunch program, into our community supported agriculture program. And we're also just able to distribute it for free to our community. That's a hyper-localized food system right there. And I think it's really important to invest and also listen and amplify indigenous voices. So that's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
That's excellent. So when we think about what's needed in terms of investment, and that was the question, I think there's a whole area of opportunities to invest in. But one of the things is really investing in local communities and local community coalitions. Just like Matthew was explaining, like this is how this is happening in terms of bringing people together, all the different system actors in a region, in a community that are part of the food system, and saying where can we innovate, where can we do something different than we haven't done before. We talk a lot about innovation from an organization, and this is empowering people with their own collective their own collective wisdom and knowledge, and then bringing in global practices, global tools, global technologies and resources. And absolutely, those additional resources are needed of all forms, right? The technologies, the financing, the equipment, all those things. But at the core of it is the local wisdom and the local know-how. One of the things that we have done in partnership with, it was led by the Rockefeller Foundation, was the Food System Vision Prize. And the intent on that was to also create, really invest in hope and a vision for the future. So what can be actually done with resilient food systems in 2050, knowing there's an urgent food crisis right now, but also recognizing we need to continue to invest. And the reality is when you start investing at the local level and engaging people, you actually start growing food now, right? You start having these buffalo herds, they're not crops, I know that, buffalo herds, but then you're actually providing food. So we think 2050 is a long ways out there, but in the meantime, you're actually increasing local capacity. And so with the Food System Vision Prize, it was really a call for people to actually envision something hopeful, so that there was resilient, equitable, accessible, nutritious plans in place. And out of 95 different countries, there was 1,300 submissions. And local organizations came together, such as Matthews, to say, this is what we're doing. We are doing it currently, or this is the plan that we would like to actually have funded and be able to showcase to the world on what is possible whenever we invest at a local level.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'd like to turn it just a little bit, if I may, to the discussion that we have on a daily basis in Rome and how we combat the issues that are around it, but how we move forward. And that I'm going to use Ukraine as the catalyst in this. But as we all know, Ukraine is not the only hungry or lack of food country in the world. We're faced now with a situation where grain either is in there and can't get out, or it's out and went the wrong spot, and all the issues, whatever the rumors may bear. But what I'd like to really talk about with this, with regards to just that issue, is and I'll back it up just for a second. I was in Madagascar not long ago, and there's a very serious food and water issue in Madagascar. And the bottom line was that for a very long time, not just recently, for a very long time, the food just wasn't reaching Madagascar because of corruption. And so I'd like to hear your thoughts on how we deal with and how we can work with and work around situations like this that really stop a lot of the food flow internationally and all the things that are surround that. And not only that, but not only how we work with it, but how we combat it, more importantly. And Mr. President, would you like to start?
We have vowed in our country to fight corruption. We said this is our enemy number one, and it's not wanted anywhere. In the streets, in the offices, in the corridors, or in the villages, in the cities, and in government institutions. Because this really, if you look at lives that get lost through that, when you look at children that suffer because of that, when you look at women that are at the receiving end of services that should have been there and are not there, then you look at the toll that corruption does bring to a community or society. And we want to deal with it. In these matters to do with productivity, sometimes productivity is less or less quality because of corruption. And so we want to be able to scale up in order for us to give hope to those most vulnerable, women and children, and young people particularly. We have large projects that look at, how we can have irrigation schemes, particularly along the lake, one of the largest freshwater lakes in the world, and valleys that are fertile. The Shire Valley Transformation Project, funded by the World Bank, is one such project that will be one of the largest in Southern Africa. It will work if we root out corruption, because some of these things do not get done fast enough, or when they're done, they're not good enough. And so we have vowed to deal with corruption, and we are.
Maybe another angle to look at is of the climate crisis and the effect it is having on some of the most food insecure communities. So I was in Somalia some months ago, in Somaliland, and visiting the communities and, you know, speaking to the pastoralists there who have, of course, for generations adapted and managed extremely harsh conditions. And I think they're the masters of resilience in a very difficult environment. But now, because of the climate crisis, they're experiencing really devastating droughts that they have never before had to face. So now 4 different rainy seasons that have failed, and the worst drought in half a century, which continues and may become even the worst ever for that area of the world. So in those conditions, even those coping mechanisms that have been in place and have made them so resilient are no longer working, and they're meaning people having to migrate. But in fact, because of the extent of the droughts, it's no longer possible to find safe places. So that's where another part of the intervention has to happen. Is there's a high correlation of climate hotspots, or areas that are really affected by climate change, and extreme hunger. And we published a report on that last week. And for that, there needs to be adaptation funding that is really channeled to those areas. So there is adaptation to these new conditions that have not been experienced before. And in the cases such as the pastoralist in Somalia and others, maybe also consider is loss and damage of a complete way of life, of a culture that has been there for so many centuries. So that is part of the equation of what needs to be in place to ensure that there's food security, is to understand the extreme effects of climate on those areas and how adaptation funding must reach them. And those 10 countries that we were looking at that have the highest increase in hunger and that are also climate hotspots account for a large percentage of people in severe hunger conditions, and are also the least responsible for the climate situation that we're all experiencing. So less than 1% of the climate warming comes from those countries, whereas the G20 accounts for around 80%. So how do we consider this is reparation funding that needs to come and really understand to what extent livelihoods are being affected now in the longer term?
I think a few things come to mind for me. I think the first one is, I think having conversations around solutions. I think indigenous voices especially, you know, are never invited to the table around those discussions. So I think really inviting people like that, also having producers and farmers at those kind of conversations as well. People on the ground doing the actual work, I think is really important to have their voices being heard as well. I think the second thing is really talking about investing in indigenous communities as well. I think a lot of times people forget that we had a robust and vibrant food system that worked for us and was in concert with nature. And that was taken from us due to colonization. And we're trying to reclaim some of that back and realize how that works in the 21st century. And I think indigenous people have the solutions at the local level, and I don't think oftentimes they're heard. And so I just think being able to invite them to the table and hear them. And also with Buffalo, I don't think that's, you know, transferable to a lot of our other communities across the globe. But I think being able to listen to what indigenous people have to say and what they think their solutions should be for their own community, I think anybody could do that. So I would just urge people to just be more inclusive and have other people's voices heard.
When we think about all the complex issues facing the food supply chain, corruption being one of them, all sorts of different types of waste all along. You could say corruption's a type of waste. You could also say that how do seeds get distributed, all of these types of things. Whatever it may be, food distribution in general, I would say take a deep approach to understanding the system, right? So listen. So listen to local people, but really, really understand the system. We take a systems thinking approach. And so first we understand the system. Where, all along the lines, where is corruption happening? But then from there, it's not just learning about things at the system level, but deeply go in and understand it from the human experience perspective, right? What is happening? And once you actually have a good understanding of that, and this is a nuanced approach. I think oftentimes we think, oh, we understand things or we come up with solutions, but at the end of the day, we're not going to have really good solutions if we don't understand them. We've been in rooms of experts that have dedicated their lives to the food crisis, and when you start to really listen and deeply understand all the different dynamics to a problem, whether that's food corruption or whatever it is, you start to see where things are falling apart. Where are there gaps? Where's there gaps in data? Where there are trust issues? Where's there transparency issues? And then from there, you can actually create solutions to mitigate that, whatever they may be. But you always have to deeply understand and be incredibly creative in your methods and approaches to understanding.
Thank you. In some of the audiences that I'm in front of, and certainly some of our like-mindeds and not so like-mindeds in Rome that we deal with every day, I detect a hesitation in wanting to promote agricultural innovation of any kind, and also have any private sector partnerships or private sector activities going on in conjunction with what's happening. I'd like to know your views and how we can leverage the enormous expertise that's out there that we haven't even touched with regards to the food, not just food security, but overall food continuity around the world. Would anyone else like to? I keep handing it to you first, Mr. President, but if you would like to take it, you may. Otherwise, I can.
I think we need to really and realistically look at all the people involved, institutions involved, matters that would be central to delivering what is needed to be delivered. And so when you're talking about the importance of making sure that everyone has food, then let's forget some of the other things that we concentrate on to make it more difficult for people to have that. The crisis that we have been describing should be opportunities that will bring to us new ways of handling issues, innovative ways. The young people are so full of ideas that sometimes we just spend time talking about ideas rather than just take one and implement it so that then the next day we can follow another one. Because too many times there are so many experts, everyone arguing against everyone else until nothing gets done. And we just need to say, let's do it. A coalition of people in action. So that's why I like this theme, because we need to go beyond just conferences, consultations, and sharing of ideas. We need to implement the same. And that's what we're challenging communities in Malawi, whether they be at the highest level, universities, or at the lowest level, local communities. Let's find solutions, let's do it.
We continue in the same order, but yes. Yes, but maybe one area that we haven't mentioned so much is the gender dimension of all of this, and one concrete action that can be taken where women represent 43% of laborers in the agricultural sector, but only own less than 15% of the world's land. So that work on ensuring that women have access to owning the land and having the possibility of having better returns on their own work on the land is very important, but also the work on the culture norms and the the cultural systems that have meant that over time women and girls have eaten last and less. So even if we reform and we achieve many of the things that we're talking about here, food may be reaching families, but in the end still maybe many of the girls that are growing up malnourished or not having all the food that they require. So how do we also become innovative about those gender norms that have kept women back, and that really, how do we ensure that land ownership and valuing women and girls is central to all these food systems work, so that in the end it benefits those girls and women who should be at the center of all our action.
I think something that comes up to my mind regarding this conversation, I think, is one of the concepts that we really have taken a part of being a really big integral part of our organization is wodakie, which really translates to, kinship and relationships, but it also means like understanding the interconnectedness of different systems. And so when I think of our work, I don't think of it just being food systems. It's more than that. And our 7th Gen vision is more than that. It's also talking about cultural revitalization and healing. And I think for us, we really applied regenerative agriculture, which is one of the buzzwords nowadays as people hear, is, that's something that indigenous people have been practicing for time immemorial, and that is an appropriation of indigenous practices. And so we've really looked at how we treat the land and really viewed it as a relative, as like a living thing. And when you think of it that way, you respect in a different way, you treat it in a different way. And I think if we all did that, I think there would be so much more solutions that we'd be able to think of together, and I think the world would be in a much better place. And so I think I urge you all to really rethink that way and to challenge yourself, and also just to, again, bring those voices back up to the table.
I think an area of hope is that there is a ton of food innovation happening, right? There are food and agricultural system innovations happening all around the globe. There is a lot of it. We support it. We also see lots of our other partners around the world that are supporting all sorts of different innovative solutions in the form of different business models, entrepreneurship initiatives, et cetera. And I think a key thing for this is the storytelling around those things, right? Because the more people that see there's opportunity here, and it's a really exciting thing to be able to go off and not only solve immediate crises at hand, but also build, then they are going to say, let's get on board and do that. So yeah, we are huge supporters of just storytelling and signaling out there and saying, look, this is a need of innovation. Whatever it may be. And the role of technology and community-supported initiatives is so much higher than it's ever been, so it's quite easy to do that. I will say one of the things that we're really excited about is how you do this at the local level. I keep saying that, but innovation lands in local areas, especially when it comes to the food context, because it is something that's physical. And so an initiative that we are launching with Oxfam, which is really interesting, is the Urban Food Hive program. And it is really this notion of how do you bring together a whole system in an urban area. So right now we're looking at doing this, or have started it, in 4 different African countries, India, Colombia, and we're looking for a place in the United States. So for those of you who might have some fantastic ideas, but how do you actually create and cultivate really these networks of people coming together to innovate in this space? And it's a whole different type of method, right? Bring in the women. Oftentimes women are really the key ones that are impacted by and participating in, but getting their voice in, helping understand that, supporting these innovations and these entrepreneurs. You can go in so many places and see this happening, but we're really excited to say, let's bring a large NGO, let's bring a nimble innovation agency, and then all the different actors. So I think there's a lot of hope here.
Great. Thank you. We have about 5 minutes left, and I know some people do have questions. I would ask that if we can take 1 or 2 questions, please keep it to the topic and address whoever you'd like to up here, if you may. Any questions? Or maybe not. Oh, yes, sir. In that, right over there.
I'm Joel Berg. I'm CEO of Hunger Free America. We're a very food insecure countries are big food exporters. And ask each panelist to talk about the role of political power in food insecurity in the world. Thank you.
Anyone want to take that?
Well, I would just quickly agree very much that the inequality, the wealth inequality that I was talking about translates into power inequality and, of course, ability or not to influence policies. So policies that get approved normally have more of the interest of those who hold that power. And the accumulation that is happening to the extreme that is happening is accumulating power, which means that there's a danger that the interests of the smallholder farmers, the women that we're talking about, will be overlooked. So the more we are aware of this and make it something that is all of our business, then the more we can overcome it.
Anyone else? Question? Yes, sir.
Thank you. For giving me this opportunity. We invented food product called surplus. We are aiming to solve the problem of global food crisis, and we are so happy to be with here today. So, can we able to collaborate and work together to solve this problem and reach for every person to have food opportunity with our product as we are entrepreneur?
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Congratulations. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I work in Haiti with smallholder farmers, and we're currently in discussion with the World Food Program, and the dilemma that you mentioned, Ambassador, the juxtaposition of emergency need and long-term resilience. And the challenge that the World Food Program has presented to us is they can't buy local food at the moment because it's too expensive. They need to make an investment to be able to help scale the operations of smallholder farmers and build that capacity, but they can't afford that because they need the emergency food amounts to be able to buy the most food now because it is a crisis. So how do you bridge that gap between the emergency needs and the need for the investment long term? Because there's a political reality behind that. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Anyone? Would you like to take that?
Well, in emergency, issues like we are involved in, for example, when you have at a national level food that may be available on a household, it's not. Social cash transfers, the World Bank has helped us so people can have sufficient money to go buy food wherever it is available. That's something that could be used as an emergency stopgap measure.
I'm sorry, we don't have any more time for any more questions. I wish we did, because that's a very long-term discussion that I would love to have with you for the work that we do in Rome. I want to thank CGI for their wonderful participation in this. You know, there's several organizations you can go to, and most of them sit around and talk about things, but CGI not only talks, exhibits, but they have an action element to them, and that's, in my opinion, the most important part. So thank you all very much for coming. Thank you for participating.
Now we welcome Kirill Dumoshev.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, esteemed guests of this bold global initiative. First, let me thank President Clinton and Secretary Clinton for their leadership in gathering all of us to focus on better future of our world. My name is Kirill Dumoshev. I bring greetings from my family, the beautiful Bulgarian capital city of Sofia, and nearly 8 million Bulgarian citizens. The purpose of my maiden speech to the Clinton's Global Initiative is to inspire you to action with us at Huwe Pharma, the global company I led with my brother Georgi. Our company is focused on meeting our shared challenge of exploring global food demand and doing so with a focus on safety, nutrition, and sustainability. Our companies are proud to be among the first to carry grain out of Ukraine after its ports was reopened, something to do, we hope, for a return to peace in our region. By 2050, we will be a world of 10 billion people. More of our global population will move into the middle class and developed economies. This will more than double the demand for resources at the center of all of our lives. Meeting this demand requires innovation, collaboration, and long-term thinking. Through our family businesses, we are doing our part to meet these challenges in 3 ways. A focus on ensuring animal health as we meet exploding demand for protein. Innovating to meet the changing needs for modern farmers and food producers. And developing and refining products and processes with sustainability at the core of our work. First, no matter of our individual dietary choices, we know that animal proteins are central to the diets of most human beings. And so we must ensure only healthy animals feed the world. Huey Pharma works to provide veterinary pharmaceuticals and feed additives for livestock, helping farmers to keep our most central source of protein healthy. One of the ways we are innovating to meet future demand and prevent global food supply disruption is by aligning with our food-producing partners to develop long-term solutions to significant threats. For example, the last decade has produced multiple disruptions to animal feed markets, creating global ripple effects on supply and cost of food. A key innovation came from research on raw materials which were not used in current animal feed practice, such that we can create a more sustainable and resilient animal feed supply. In response, Huey Pharma developed enzymes with multiple advantages. For example, our innovative non-starch polysaccharides make previously unusable fibers digestible as animal feed. Other enzymes we develop are helping to lessen use of phosphates, reducing environmental pollution and farmer costs. The overuse of inorganic phosphates is a source of significant environmental impact and opportunity to move toward more sustainable sources. Our goal in sharing these 2 examples and others is to raise awareness of the opportunity in use and reuse of feed ingredients that make it possible for farmers to raise their animals through periods of disruption, keeping food available to the most at risk while reducing impact on our environment. We strongly believe further improvement in livestock production is possible and beneficial. As a company, we continue to invest in developing new and improved enzymes, specialty feed additives, and probiotics to meet this global need. While meeting the demand for animal protein, we must also invest to develop alternative sources of key nutritional ingredients. One example is the production of algal-based omega-3. Our company, Huey Pharma, is producing omega-3 rich oils through microalgae fermentation, all without processing fish to collect the oils. Our technology produces the same key nutrient as fish oil through fermentation. It doesn't interfere with the natural ecology of the oceans, and it's free from heavy metals, nanoplastics, and other contaminants. Currently, millions of tons of fish are needed to meet global demand for omega-3. The environmental advantage of using algal oils produced by fermentation is a global opportunity to sustainable power human and animal nutrition. As you have heard, we are innovating with sustainability at the center of our business. As part of our commitment to reduce our carbon footprint, we are investing to increase the use of renewable energy across our companies, all with the goal to becoming carbon neutral. Huey Pharma sustainability initiatives include increasing energy efficiency and investments in multiple renewable energy sources such as solar, green hydrogen, and geothermal. Our first investment was in a 25 megawatt producing solar plant in 2021. We will reach 190 megawatt by 2023, additional investments will increase this capacity to 300 megawatts, aligned with our ambition to achieve the goals of the Paris Climate Agreement. These investments prove that sustainability and profit can go hand in hand. Business, government, philanthropy, and NGOs have a role to play in helping the next generation have better chances at a good and healthy life. We believe, like you, that safe and healthy food and healthy environment are central to those goals. Thank you for your attention and for the opportunity to share my views and commitment with such an eminent audience of global leaders. Thank you.
This concludes our session. Please exit the room. Thank you for coming.